Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 66 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host this week. This week, I'm going to talk about Stirling Soaps. I finally got a sample of Stirling Soaps. Thanks, Joe. And I gave it a try, and I'll tell you all about it. I'm also trying something just kind of new and different. I don't know if I like it yet. I'm still playing around with it. I got an app for my phone, and it's an app specifically made for podcasts and recording things. And so I try it out, and I'm trying it out in the truck. I'll talk a little bit about that, but if you happen to notice, I don't know, turn signals, bumps, cars, engines, those kind of noises, that's where it's coming from. Bear with me. I'm learning here. It's I quieted it down a little bit in post-production, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, it has been a lot of fun. I also talk about a razor that I have been kind of playing around with here. It is a 1921 ball and old type double-edge Gillette razor. And the reason I'm emphasizing what it is because during the whole recording of the segment that I'm talking about it, I cannot for the life of me remember what type of razor this is, which is just, I'm supposed to be better than that. But it was just one of those things. It does happen. I'm okay with it. I'm going to talk just real quickly. One of the things that's been going on Facebook is the 7 deadly sins of shaving, and so it's not necessarily a crack at it, but it did cause me to reflect a little bit. And then finally, I had a conversation with someone that I wasn't expecting. Now, it turned out great, don't get me wrong, but I didn't expect that conversation to come from that individual. And so, we'll talk about it, but, at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, will you get up and at least try? So keep that in mind while we get it going through this episode, and we'll get to it at the end there, and thank you very much for being here. Again, if you're interested, there is a special Brush and Soap and Blade 2015 custom shaving brush being made by none other than Nathan Clark, and I'll throw the link up in the show notes. And if you're interested on getting a great brush at a great price, got a couple of different knots you can get, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful brush. And a little bit of the proceeds come over here to the podcast, and more importantly, you get an excellent brush for a really, really good price, lower than he normally charges for his custom brushes. So it's a good thing for everybody. Anyhow, with that said, let's get on with this show. I got an email from Chris. This was episode 65 commentary. Hey, Rick. I just finished listening to episode 65 and wanted to comment on your thoughts regarding the unshaved. In years gone by, aristocratic society referred to the lower classes as the unbathed. I believe that there was a good reason for that, which rather ties into your current line of thinking. Looking back to the Victorian era, appearance was everything. In order to be considered a gentleman, one needed to possess home, land if possible, and some disposable income. Moreover, good breeding and respectability were necessities for entry into societal circles. Reputation within itself could be made or broken upon one's personal dress and grooming habits. To the Victorian mind, it was perfectly acceptable upon first meeting an individual to size them up, so to speak. Their manner of clothing was noticed, whether it was new, fashionable, clean, and presentable, or frumpy, tattered, and dirty. Attention to hairstyles and facial hair appearance were also noticed. A well-groomed mustache was a mark of an upper-class individual, as it was generally thought by high society that a working-class man did not have the time to maintain styled facial hair. On the other hand, however, if a man's manner of dress was not up to par, and he put forth the appearance of not having shaved in a day or two, he would not be considered a gentleman of reputable status. No, he was generally considered to be a member of the unbathed masses, and was not to be taken seriously. As time has progressed, our standards of dress and grooming have loosened, some for the better and some for the less than adequate, sadly. Through the majority of the 20th century, beards were taboo in a business environment. A man who wore a beard was mildly considered untrustworthy, as he was obviously trying to hide something. Let's not forget that a suit and tie were mandatory from the office to a date. As we closed out the 90s, however, much had begun changing. Ties were starting to become optional at work. The bedhead look was the hot new hairstyle for men, and stubble appeared on our faces to accentuate our desirability. 15 years into the new century, and men wear their jeans below their waistlines, and the hipster look is the new rage. If a man crawls out of bed in the morning, bathes in cologne, slathers some beard oil on his Grizzly Adams accessory, then zips off to work with his BVDs visible, he's considered normal and accepted as a legitimate contributing member of society. Wow, how great the fall of men and society at large. We in the wet shaving community hold ourselves and others to a higher standard. We walk conversely to the modern society with all its accepted norms. We take a certain pride in our appearance and expect the same of those of whom we come into contact with. For these reasons, as it was in the Victorian era, it is perfectly acceptable to size a man up upon first meeting. Think about it this way. If you were, for instance, to hire a contractor to do some work on your home, and he shows up for an estimate, driving a 20-year-old unmarked van, sporting a 5-day beard growth, dressed in a nasty t-shirt and ripped jeans, how likely would you be to hire him? Theoretically, would you trust him to take your daughter on a date? Again, theoretically, how about escorting your elderly mother to the bank? In short, appearances have always and still do matter. I personally marvel when I am in public at what is considered acceptable, from dress to facial hair to the I don't care attitudes. Do people even look in the mirror anymore before they leave the house? I have my doubts. Therefore, my advice to fellow wet shavers is keep up the good work. People do notice. Thanks for the great podcast, and best regards, Christopher. Well, Christopher, thank you very much for the email. And I do greatly appreciate it, because I asked last week if, God forbid, I'm the only one out here who thinks this, and by your letter, I take it that I am not the only one. So thank you for letting me know that I am not absolutely bat-nuts crazy. I do appreciate it. I was getting, just a little concerned. I also had another comment. It said, just listen to your latest podcast. I, like yourself, look at other men's faces to see if they have shaved recently, but I don't judge them. I was like those people who would shave once, maybe twice a week due to time, a bad shave, or the cost of cartridge razors. Some, like yourself, shave every day. I now shave 3 times a week. I think to each their own. You can give them the knowledge, but it's up to them what they do with it. That's my little rant. Keep up the good work, Steve. Well, Steve, thank you very much for the quick comment. I do appreciate it. Again, like I said in the previous email, I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one. And I like I said the other week, I don't think I judge, but at the same time, I'm thinking about it. So it makes me wonder if I'm doing it, even if I'm doing it, subconsciously. It's just an interesting thing. I try not to. I try to treat everyone with decency and respect until they prove that they don't deserve it. I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt, no matter who they are. That's just the way I've always been. And anyhow, I do appreciate the note, and again, thank you for letting me know that I'm not the only one. Stirling Soap. Okay, the soap that I've been using has been Stirling Soap, and the flavor, if you will, the fragrance is Ben Franklin. And one of the reasons that I really, really like Ben Franklin, first off, it was sent to me by Joe down there in Arizona at Homesteadonomics, another YouTuber. And so, Joe, thank you. Great soap, great scent. So it's a little sample of Stirling Soap. And I'd never tried a Stirling Soap before. I had never used one. And I must say that I'm impressed. I mean, it was really, really a good soap. So holding the puck in my hand, because it's a small sample puck. I've used it with boar brushes. I've used it with my Plisson. Never had an issue. Lathered well, no matter what I did. The only thing that I noticed is my Plisson, and again, it's a function of the fact that it's a synthetic brush, doesn't hold a lot of water. And so, in fact, it doesn't hold any water. So I've got to add just a little bit more water to the soap, and it doesn't matter which soap I'm using, as I'm loading the brush in order to move, if you will, in order to get the soap to move up into the brush. Otherwise, it just stays down at the tips. And I don't get as good a loading as I do on, say, my boar brushes. So, but again, that's just a function of the fact that, it's a synthetic brush. Okay, so Stirling Soaps. First off, fragrance. Oh, absolutely fabulous. It's on my list of things to get, and part of the reason is because it has frankincense in it. Now, I grew up in a religious household. Okay, I just did, and in fact, at one point, I was an altar boy. It's just how I grew up, and I associate Christmas and the holiday season with incense. Easter, things like that. I mean, I associate those holidays and those holiday seasons, which I thoroughly enjoy and always have, with incense, or vice versa. So for me, some of my favorite scents are incense type scents, and specifically traditional incense like frankincense and myrrh and things like that. And that's one of the reasons, for example, one of my all-time favorite soaps is by Queen Charlotte Soap, and it's a flavor or a fragrance called Basilica. Okay, well, on to my story. Stirling Soaps. Stirling Soaps, Ben Franklin, has frankincense in it, and it is fabulous. It is very, first off, it's noticeable. It's not in your face noticeable, but it is in fact noticeable. And it just creates an absolutely elegant smell, at least in my book. So it's wonderful. It's wonderfully balanced with the other oils and smells that are within the soap. And so it's, for me, the soap of, the smell of this one was absolutely top notch. Okay. I never had a problem lathering it. This thing lathered easily, very easily. So I was very happy with that. Like I said, I'd never used any of the Stirling soaps, and so to throw one in there and have the lathering experience that I did was a treat. It was just nice. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was easy to lather. It lathered well. It consistently gave me more than enough for 3, 4, or more passes. It didn't it wasn't a scrimpy soap by any regards, as long as I did my job and loaded the brush. And again, I'm loading the brush, maybe 30 or 40 revolutions on the puck with, medium pressure. And, I'm not bending the knot all the way down to the handle. I'm pushing in so that the knot is, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the way splayed, if you will. That was a nice bump. So yeah, I'm pushing it down so that, putting enough pressure on the brush so that the about a quarter of the brush is kind of splayed out a little bit, and that typically gives me enough pressure to get a great load no matter which brush I'm using. Okay, so as far as I did try face lathering today, and I'm not a face latherer, okay, so bear that in mind. And it was a little dry going in. I mean, it's just, I wet my face and then face lather. It's still just, to me, it was just a little dry. And again, keep in mind, I'm a bowl latherer. So, if I tell you that it doesn't face lather well, don't take that as any kind of recommendation or anything like that, because, heck, I don't know what I'm doing here. So, as far as bowl lather's great, but I wanted to try face lathering. It did a nice job. It was a little dry for the first pass, but, I added just a touch of water and everything, came up to where it needed to be for the second pass, and so it was all good. Didn't have any problems at all. So, that was good. Good protection, good glide. I got a couple of nicks, but it had nothing at all to do with the soap. It had everything to do with the razor. Well, and the blade. And it doesn't help that I'm using a brand new, fresh, ninja sharp feather blade. So, it's just, one of those things. But the soap itself, great cushion, great glide. I didn't have any issues with it. It lathered well. Good stuff. So, one of the things that I'm doing that's a little bit different, and this one may sound a bit odd. I'm going to try to clean it up in post-production. But one of the things that may sound just a little bit odd is I am attempting to record this in the truck. I have a program for my iPhone, and I'm just using the microphone that comes with the earbuds for the iPhone, and I'll probably upgrade to a better microphone at some point. But I wanted to give this a try just to see. I mean, it's part of as well as learning and growing in the shaving hobby. I'm also learning and growing in the podcasting hobby as well, in the communication hobby, and all of that stuff. So I decided to give this a try. Now, there's probably some low-level noise, and I'll try to scrub that out again in post-production, but we'll see. It's a good little program. It's called BossJock, and it really has a lot of functionality that I may put to use at a later date. But for right now, I just wanted to use it as a nice recorder. And one of the reasons that I enjoy this more than any other is that when I'm recording, one of the things that I enjoy is being able to monitor what I'm saying, and so it's almost like having a feedback loop. Most voice recorders do not allow that. Most voice recorders, you talk, it records, and that's it. The BossJock, on the other hand, what it does is it takes the signal and sends it back as a monitor into the earbuds. And so, you get that feedback. So if you go off mic, like I'm doing now, and then when you're coming back on mic. And so that's one of the things that comes in handy, because now if you understand fundamentally where you are, from an audio standpoint, in space, as it were, you can hopefully maintain that, or do a better job maintaining that, to get a much more consistent signal. Not necessarily a clear signal, but at least a consistent signal. And a consistent signal then becomes much easier to deal with in post-production, or in doing things, or even if you would just listen to it straight. It's much more enjoyable to listen to a consistent signal than one that's fading in and out. If I was tilting my head back and forth coming off microphone all the time, it would be, a tad disconcerting. Trust me, I know, because I've listened to podcasts that do that, and it's... okay, call me an audio snob, I'm sorry, but there are some podcasts that I dearly, dearly enjoy the content. I really do. I mean, some of them are great, great podcasts. But because of the audio qualities of the podcast, I can't listen to the dang things. It's just, it drives me crazy. There's one, and I'm attuned to this as well. It's one of those things that you listen for after you realize it happens. But so I put this podcast on, and the music, the intro music, is at a certain volume, and so you adjust the sound on your player, whether that's a vehicle or whatever. You adjust the volume so that you can hear things, and then the intro comes on, and you can't hear it, because the intro level is so much less than the audio level, and it's not balanced, it's not normalized, it's just different. And so if you're in a vehicle, for example, it's really noticeable in a vehicle, not so much on earbuds, but it's really noticeable in a vehicle. So you reach over to lower the volume down a little bit. And then there's another segment after the intro music where it's kind of like the second intro, if you will. And it's, again, just blaringly loud. And, of course, you've just turned up the volume to hear the guy, and now it's blasting in your ear, and you got to turn it back down again. And then you get into the main part of the show, and you can't hear him again. It's like, oh, my gosh, and it's a short show. It's like 15 minutes. So here you have a situation where, within a 15-minute span of time, you're reaching over and adjusting the volume knob 3, 4, 5 times. And, okay, I really do. I love the content. I just can't stand to listen to it. It just drives me crazy. So, having a consistent signal is important. And, the same thing is true with any radio operation, or, even telephone. It's good to have consistency. So, anyhow, I wanted to try the new recording method, and again, I'll figure out a way to maybe get a better microphone in here, or do something like that. I'd love to have a single headphone and a boom mic. Oh, that would be awesome, especially if I get the boom mic as a dynamic mic, and cut back some of the outside noise that I'm sure this little condenser mic is picking up. That would be ideal. I mean, that would really be nice. So, I just wanted to try it because, again, it's one of those things where I find when I'm driving down the road and my mind is completely unoccupied with anything but driving, it's when I think I do some of my best thinking and some of my best relating. I may be wrong. You guys tell me. Do you like it? You want me to stop? You want me to improve the audio quality and keep going in the truck here, or what? I enjoy doing it. It would be easy for me, that's for sure. I think. But it's an experiment, and just like everything else, especially in wet shaving, it's all an experiment. It's all an experiment. It's, that's how you learn. That's how you grow. And that's what I'm trying to do. The other day, I was cleaning out my truck. I had to take my truck in for service. It had some warranty work that needed to be done. And in the process of cleaning out my truck, I found an old razor that the sophomore shaver had given me. And he gave it to me because he said, okay, I picked this up at an antique store, and this dang thing is way too aggressive. Okay, fair enough. So I got to looking at it. First off, it's an old Gillette double edge. It's an open comb. It is the one right before the new. I can't remember which one that is. It's brass, silver plated, and pretty razor. I mean, it's kind of the predecessor, if you will, to the ball handled tech. Very, very nice handle. I really like the handle on the thing, so that's really nice. Anyhow, I got to looking at the head. Now, the cap is in good shape, okay? The cap is fine. The problem that I have with it, or that I had with it, is that for some reason, and I have no earthly idea how the hell this happened, but for some reason, the bottom plate, where the blade goes and where the blade sits, looked like someone had gone over it with a flippin' file. I mean, it was beat up and rough and just, Okay. So I looked at that and I went, aha, I have a theory. And my theory is this. My theory is that because that part of the razor is not smooth, what ends up happening is the blade is being held a little bit high, so it's going to be a tad aggressive in spots. It's going to have kind of a wavy blade, almost like a serrated knife, if you will, in effect, as this blade tries to crimp down and close over top of this, and, kind of pull a little bit tighter over top of this, well, just mess. So what I did is I did a little experiment. First off, he gave me some feather blades, and he gave me this thing. And both sides were pretty beat up, okay? So what I did is I took a stone and then some 2000 grit wet dry paper, and I buffed one side, not both sides, one side down. And I buffed it until, well, it was smooth again. And after doing this, what I wanted to see is if one side was more or less aggressive than the other. Okay, sounds good. So this morning, I used the supposed non-aggressive side. I'm here to tell you, the razor itself is just a tad aggressive. If I was to put it on a fat boy scale, I'd put it probably around a 6 or a 7. However, with that being said, the buffed side, the side that is a little bit smoother, which is the one that I used today, while a tad aggressive, was smooth. It was really, really a nice, smooth shave. So now I'm debating, do I mean, it's in good shape. Do I take this thing and clean it up and maybe replate it? Do I just take it down and leave it in its native brass? I mean, what do I do with this thing? It's a conundrum. But anyhow, it's one of those things that sometimes, when you look at something, it's not. Like I said, I don't know. I'll have to take a look under the jeweler's loop as to how the hell the the comb section. And I'll try to take a picture of it or two. I don't know if my phone can get in that deep, but I'll try to take a picture because, oh my gosh, you want to talk about a disaster in the comb area. Rough, and I mean, just, it looked like someone welded on the damn thing. It's just crazy. I don't know what would cause that. It was just curious. Okay, so the razor that I've been using, I have been using the old open comb that the sophomore shaver gave me the other day. And while yesterday I had used the edge that I had smoothed out, today I used the side that I hadn't smoothed out, that was still, just absolutely rough as a cactus, and I wanted to see if there was an appreciable difference. Now, what I did notice, and it was just, if there was a difference, it was slight. So this is almost at the perception level more than anything else. It's there's no empirical data, if you will, to back up this observation. It was more gut feel than anything else. And granted, I may be just a tad biased going into this thing, but what I noticed was that the blade seemed, just a tad more aggressive. And, by a tad, I mean, you're talking maybe a point on the fat boy scale. It's just, it wasn't much. Now, of course, with the brand new feather blade and, I did nick myself one time mildly in the chin. Okay. But I also felt a little bit more irritation. Okay, so here's my theory. And again, I don't have any evidence or data to back this up. This is all just gut feel. But here's my theory. Because, and again, I'll try to take some pictures of this so that it maybe makes more sense. But the bottom part of the razor, where the blade sits, is rough. And because of that, the blade cannot sit absolutely flat. There's almost like pressure points along the side of the blade, along the edge of the blade, that to a certain extent cause a bit of a wave in the blade. The gap is not consistent across the blade because of that, and the blade exposure is potentially changed as well. And when you throw in all these, inconsistencies into the shave, you have a shave that feels a tad more aggressive and a tad rougher. All right, that's my theory. And based on the way my face felt this morning, I think it holds true. But again, it's so subjective. So this is, like I said, it's really kind of a gut feel more than anything else. Now, the other thing is that the comb itself, being rough the way it is, actually, as it rolls or, is dragged across your face, the roughness in and of itself will cause issues. So when I look at all of that combined, all right, I'm wondering if part of the roughness of the shave or the aggressiveness of the shave was not due to the fact that the bottom plate of this razor was, beat up. So what I'm going to do is I will take it and I'll get some pictures of it, and then I will buff out that bottom section on the other side so that they're both smooth and nice. And I may give it back to the sophomore shaver just to see if he has the same feelings. And if he doesn't want it, great, I'll take it. But if he at least tries it and says yes, it's smoother than I remember, that may be an indication that at least my thought process and theories were correct. So we'll see. But overall, it is just a tad aggressive. I would say, on a fat boy scale, I would put it up around a 7. That's where it just, felt. So it is just a tad aggressive. And if you're by and large used to, razors that sit, somewhere in the 4 to 5 range or mild to average range, if you get a hold of one that's a tad aggressive, yeah, it can be a bit of a shocker. But one thing that I noticed that with a more aggressive razor, the way to utilize those and not get yourself in trouble is to use even less pressure. Literally just let the weight of the head move and, slice through the stubble. Instead of, you almost don't even have to put any movement in your arm at all to get this thing to work. So, from that aspect, it's not too bad. I do find that I got, close shaves with it. It was not bad at all, really. Is it as smooth and gentle as my new? No, not at all. It's much more aggressive, and it's not as gentle. I will admit that, but it's not a terrible razor. It's interesting, the evolution, and when you think about it, and I've said this before about single edge blades, but it's almost like you can, as you use it, you can understand and feel the evolution of the blades on your face, to go from a straight razor where, it's as aggressive as you want it. And straight razors can be somewhat aggressive. To go from a straight razor to something like this where, yeah, it is a little bit more aggressive, but it's okay because, well, people are, used to it. They're used to using an aggressive razor, and then as time goes on, the razors become just a bit less and less aggressive over time. And the only thing that changes that is the adjustables, where there's kind of an homage back to the aggressiveness of the earlier razors. So it's interesting. It was it's kind of an interesting journey in your experience, on your face. Kind of neat. So, anyhow, those are my observations and thoughts with the Gillette Open Comb, and again, I can't remember the model of the silly thing. I'll have to look that up and edit that in, because I don't remember. I know it's bad. I'm supposed to be better than this, but oh well. So anyhow, then I get on Facebook and start looking around, and I see Chris Bailey doing he'd been challenged to the 7 deadly sins of shaving. Boy, you could get in a lot of trouble with that one. But at the same time, it was an interesting exercise. It was, I had been talking with the sophomore shaver the other day, and one of the things that we had noted is that the sophomore shaver really, really likes the look of of Chris Bailey's Pills razor. And when he talked about it, I went, okay, he said it looks like a hammer. It's like, all right. And I thought, okay, is it a Razor Rock Stealth? Is it, I picked out a couple that it might have been, and then finally I went, it's the Pills. And, as soon as I saw it, I knew what it was, which is scary in and of itself. How the heck do I know these things? It's like, oh my gosh, it's scary. So anyhow, we get to talking about it a little bit, and then, I look up the price of the Pills, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I told the sophomore shaver, I said, if you have any communication with Mr. Chris Bailey, you can tell him that I said he's got more money than sense. Because it is an expensive razor. So then I was watching his video, and he comes out and he says, well, he says, this thing retails for this amount, but I didn't pay that for it. It's like, okay. I still think he got more money than sense, but okay, it's a little bit better. But the other interesting thing was that when he got done admitting that, he then held up another razor, a very, inexpensive razor, and made the admission that they both shave about the same. Really? If I'm going to pay that much money for a razor, I want it to, make coffee. I don't know, maybe I'm cheap. He was saying his least pricey razor was like in the $25, $30 range, I think he said. I think the cheapest razor I have was like $1. Yeah, I picked it up in a lot. I think it's either $1, $5, or $8. Somewhere in that neighborhood is my cheapest razor. And it's an old vintage Gillette. So, but it was interesting. So that was greed. I don't know. Greed. Shaving greed. Well, I don't know. I want a bazillion listeners and, to be infamously famous. I want to be famous. I mean, I don't know. I don't care. Greed's a tough one for me. I don't know. Envy, now, that's one that I can talk about. I mean, it would be nice to be able to test some of the new razors and just experience them. And so I'm a tad envious of the people that get that opportunity, Mantic over there with the Beluga razor. I mean, that was pretty cool. He got his hands on a Rockwell. That was cool too, I'd love to experience a Pills razor just to be able to say I've done it, Some of the really high dollar straight razors, that's I'm a tad envious of that, When I see somebody with a rack of straight razors that probably cost, $100, $200 a piece, and it's like, I'm a tad envious of that. Let's see. Sloth. I'm definitely. I mean, that's. I get very slothful sometimes when it comes to the podcast. It's there are times when I walk in and it's like I have no idea what the hell I'm going to talk about, nor have I done much preparation. Yeah. Okay. When I say I haven't done much preparation, I haven't done much official preparation. I've thought about it. I've thought that, maybe I could talk about this or I could talk about that. I haven't written it down. I haven't prepped any. It's just, it's kind of off the cuff. Okay. A bit of sloth there. Let's see. What was another one? Oh, geez. I can't remember. Desire, I guess. What would I desire? I don't know. That's a tough one. Some of the high dollar shave soaps, some of the more exotic ones, some of the ones that you can only get in certain places and in certain countries would be cool. That would be interesting. What else do I have? My wife, she's very. It's like. I was looking at, we were walking through the mall, and she's like, oh, well, do you want to go in here and buy a soap? You may want to review it or something. It's like, nah, I'm good. It was one of the maca root ones or whatever, and it's like, nah, I'm good. Okay, so, the other day, and just, if this sounds a little different, I'm trying something new. I'm driving down the road, and I am recording this in the truck. And the reason that I'm recording this in the truck is because I found that I do a lot of good thinking and reflecting in the truck. When I'm driving down the road, I find that, things come alive for me. I get more animated than when I'm sitting in the studio just, talking into the microphone. I found that some of the recordings that I do when I'm in the truck, to me anyhow, sound more passionate, I guess is the best word. So, let me describe for you, or tell you, the story of a recent encounter. I have a friend at work, and it's a friend that I have not talked about before, but I have a friend at work who I respect a lot. And the reason that I respect him is because he is fundamentally a doer. He is a person that, under most circumstances, does not allow anything to get in his way. He will go out and try. He will go out and do. He's one of these people that, it's, sure, I'll give it a shot. I'll go for it. At least that was my interpretation of his experiences as he told them to me. Now, as I've said before, I have a lot of compassion for people who at least try. So, I respect this individual a lot. And over lunch one day, he asked me a question. He said, I have something. I needed to talk to you about something. I said, okay. He said, I was wondering if I could ask you to make me something. All right. He said, I need or I would like to make a sheath for a knife. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he must want something special. I said, okay, what kind of knife sheath do you want? Do you want anything special on it or in it, or, pouches or loops or this or that? He said, no, I just want a leather sheath for my knife. And I stopped for a minute. Now, I have been playing around with leather probably since the time I was, 9 years old. I remember doing kits. We used to go to Tandy Leather and buy leatherworking kits. And in fact, I still have one that I made when I was like 10. It was me and my dad made this thing, and it was a little comb holster, I guess it was. But I tooled it, and I cut it and laced it, and I still have it. So yeah, I look at that and I go, oh, okay. So he described this leather sheath that he wanted, and to a certain extent, I must admit, I was taken aback. Because this is a man that I respected for being a doer, but he was balking at something that, in my head anyhow, to me, again, because I've done it, I'm thinking, leatherwork is relatively easy to do. There's some shortcuts you can take, and there's some techniques. I mean, for the most part, it's not hard. Okay. So, I could have gone the route of giving him a hard time, calling him a loser, carrying on, saying, I used to think you were somebody who did stuff, and now you come to me with this, what the heck? I didn't do that. I asked him a question. I said, okay, I'm not trying to be mean, but I have to know, what is stopping you from attempting to do this yourself? And he thought about it a minute, and he looked at me, and he said, inexperience. At which point I said, okay. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, after having a couple of kids and raising them up at least to the ages that they are, knowing the things that I had said over the course of time to my own children, the thing that I always stated is, if you don't have experience, how do you get it? You get it by going out and trying. You get it by going out and doing. Yes, you may screw up. You may fail. It may be miserable. It may look bad. It may not work at all. But you try. Just recently I bought myself a new axe head. It was a Western pattern axe head, and I may throw some pictures up of it. And I've got the handle in the mail the other day that I ordered for it. And it's a beautiful handle. It's a beautiful hickory handle, and grain orientation's right and everything else. Now, I don't have much experience with putting handles on tools, and in the case of an axe, it's called hanging an axe. I don't have much experience with it. I've only done it twice so far. But that's okay, because I've gotten better at it each time. Now, the first time, I hung a double bit axe, and instead of the eye of the axe shouldering down on the handle where it's supposed to, it's about a 1/4 inch high. And it's a 1/4 inch high because I failed miserably, apparently, at keeping the sides that go into the eye parallel, so that there's a taper that I'm wedging against instead of down at the shoulder where it's supposed to be. Okay. Good learning point. Didn't stop me from doing it. Does it harm the functionality of the axe? No. It might shorten the life of the handle a little bit, but it's not going to hurt the axe. And the other interesting thing is, the only person really that knows that that's a problem is either people who hang axes, who have done it before, who can look at it and go, I did that once. Yeah, I know how that happens. Or myself. Because the only people that know that that's a problem are the people who have some experience at it. And most of the people that look at that axe don't have any experience and don't realize anything's wrong unless, well, I tell them. So the only person that knows, for the most part, within, my circle of influence, if you will, the only people that knows anything is wrong is, well, me. That's it. Now, does it drive me crazy? To a certain extent. But at the same time, it doesn't hurt the functionality of the axe, and at some point I will probably snap the handle off of that thing because, I do silly things with axes, and then I'll go and replace it, and I'll do a better job next time. And that's okay. Because that's exactly how you learn, is you do. You don't sit there on your hands. You don't ask for somebody. You don't go and say, I can't do it. I need somebody else to do it for me. At least give it a try. Because if you don't give it a try, you will never learn. And if you never learn, you will never grow. And if you never grow, well, quite honestly, what's the point? Anyhow, back to my story. So, I asked him, what is holding you back from doing this? Lack of experience. Okay. And I looked at him and I said, and how do you fix that? And he looked at me and you could tell. Okay, I know. He said, you fix that by trying. I said, yes. And I told him, I said, I will help you in any way I know how. I will coach you, I will guide you, I will give you tips and tricks, but I want you to do this. And he said, okay. All right. So we continued the conversation, and it was an interesting conversation because the conversation was now not about where can I get this and where can I do that and who can do this for me, but it had changed to a conversation of mechanics. How do I do this? What's a good technique for making it like this? How do you put this feature on it? How would you do this? How would you do that? Now that's a conversation that at least I can really, really get into. Because it's about doing. So, I will help him with his sheath. It is a fairly easy project, the way that he wants to make it, which is fine. And, for the first couple of times, that's good. I mean, I've probably made 30 sheaths so far in my life. I think I still have the first one. Looks like crap. It really does. But I have it. And it's still perfectly functional. And it still does an absolutely fabulous job. It just looks a little iffy. But that's okay. Because if it wasn't for that first sheath that I made, I wouldn't have made the second. And if I wouldn't have made the second, well, I wouldn't have made any of them. And then I wouldn't know how. And if nothing else, at this point in my life, I wouldn't know how to help a friend. How sad would that be? And the other thing that just kind of occurs as I talk about this is, it's very similar to the things that we do every day. When you first picked up a razor, and it didn't really matter what kind of razor it was. When you first picked up a razor, did you get a perfect shave? Did you use it correctly the first time? Was your technique right? Even if it was a can of goo, when you pushed the button on the pressurized can of goo, did you have exactly the right quantity? Did you have too little? Did you have too much? Remember, we're talking the first time. When you took those first strokes with a razor, did you reapply lather as you took second strokes? Did you take second strokes at all? Did you know what you were doing? Now, the first time you wet shaved, did you know how to make a beautiful, luxurious lather? Did you know which soaps work best for you? Did you know which blades work fabulously within both your razor and with your technique? Did you have an idea of which razor to use and why, and which one fit you best? And again, why? No. Why not? Why did you not have all of these things in your back pocket before you started? And the answer is simple. Because of lack of experience. And again, I will tell you, I will make the statement, until the day I die, I will be making this statement. How do you fix a lack of experience? You fix it by doing. So here's the question. Here is the question for today. What is it that you desire? Now, you may think, good gosh, that's a pretty complicated question. Yes, it is. And it's meant to be, because it's meant to make you think. What is it that you desire? And then the next question is, why aren't you doing it? And if the answer is because I don't know how, I don't have the experience, well, then my next statement is start. Start somewhere. Start doing something that will gain you a little bit of experience to lead you down the path of where you want to get to. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's wet shaving. It doesn't matter if it's financial investing. It doesn't matter if it's roller skating, riding a horse, driving a car. It doesn't matter. Start. Start learning. Start reading. Start asking questions. Not about who can do things for you, but how to do things. How do you do that? What's the right technique? Those are the questions that will give you results. And the thing is that once you have those results, you can then, once you get an understanding of how they work, you can then use them for yourself, for others. You can teach. And isn't that a great thing? Because at the end of the day, it wasn't so much about me and me knowing how to do something. It was the fact that I could show a friend. And in the process of showing him, I could help him grow. Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at BrushnSoapnBlade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, BrushnSoapnBlade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.